Hey, welcome to the Screen Time Continuum. We're here on this wonderful Wednesday, coming to bring to you something that we know for sure that you have watched. And if you haven't watched it, you're for sure waiting to catch up on it, and you're just mad you haven't had the time. That's right. Screen Time Continuum is here. Wednesday episode. How you doing, Nick? Before we even tell them what we're watching, you like how I did that to them? They thought I was going to tell them what we're doing, but instead,
Yeah.
how are you, sir?
Well, it's not like it's on the it's not on the overlay here. Um I'm good, man. Yeah, happy Wednesday to you. How are you?
It's wonderful. I can't complain at all.
Good. I'm glad.
Yes, indeed, brother. No, yeah, I don't know. I just felt like giving them a little difference. It's always on the screen, but I always feel like uh, when when you're doing these kind of things or you're paying attention to these, even if you read the title a million times or you read it on screen, just to hear somebody talk about it a little bit, it's like, that's what we're getting into.
No, you get an A for energy on that one. That's for sure. Energy was right.
I appreciate it. With that being said, Stranger Things Part 2. For those of you who are not aware, season 4 of Stranger Things had episodes 1 through 7 come out as volume or part 1 of part 4, chapter 4, season 4. They have so many different ways you could say
Yeah,
it.
I'm a little bit upset that this title was so long because it does not look good in a thumbnail.
Oh, for sure.
So, Stranger Things, please don't do that again.
Yeah, I will say what I noticed, and it's weird I didn't notice it until this part came out, the second part. They have these titled as if like the seasons are titled Stranger Things, Stranger Things 2, Stranger Things 3, Stranger Things 4, almost as if they're books. And it's
Yeah.
like the catalog of books comes out that way. And as you see, when you go through it, it comes out in chapter 1, chapter 2, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't really catch that until this season, like literally this last two episodes, I caught that. And it made me look at it a little differently, if I'm being totally honest, but in a good way. It
Probably
made me.
also
Mhm.
probably also a nod to like those older 80s movies. The sequels are always 2 3. You had
Right.
Aliens. I'm sorry, Aliens is a bad example, but you had Terminator 2. You had like everything had a 2 at the end or a 3.
Jason,
um
Freddy, Nightmare,
Jason,
or Nightmare on Elm
Halloween,
Street.
1 2 3 4
Mhm,
5 6 10. Yeah.
mhm. I agree. I firmly agree. If it's one thing we know about Stranger Things is they stay in their time frame. They don't really try to bring up things that aren't relevant to that era in which that they're portraying. I've always enjoyed that about Stranger Things. I think in these last two episodes there were some things that treaded the line, but nothing too risky. Just things like media propaganda, the easy stuff to point out that hasn't changed in over 50 years. And yeah, so as we get into this Stranger Things, they gave us a part 1 and they gave us a part 2, seemingly because they wanted us to get deep into this series. And I do feel like Stranger Things 4 is a different part of the series. Just like you were saying for those older movies that came out in those series, but as well as the books that came out in eras before that, actually, but even after. That's what this is giving me vibes of, and it's just a different way to view it. So, with that being said, I don't want to get too much into they did this so amazingly in the way they tailored this. It's Stranger Things. If you're watching and you've been keeping up, you know it's great. You already enjoy it. That's why you're here listening to us. That's why we're talking about it. So, with that being said, let's jump into Stranger Things and less about how I feel about the way they structured Stranger Things to deliver it to us. Nick, what are your first impressions? I know we're here to talk about part 2, but Stranger Things 4 as a I guess an installation as in its totality.
Yeah, I think it's probably fair for us to talk about the entire season as a whole by this point. We're going to be focusing on the last 2 episodes, but we really want to talk about what this whole season did for us. So, first impressions now that everything is complete, I think I don't know if it's a hot take, but it might be a controversial take. My controversial take is that this is the best season so far.
Mm,
Um, pardon me. And I I know that everybody's like, oh, season one's the best, season one's the best. And I think there's a lot of people who are just purists about the first movie in a
Mhm.
film franchise, and they're always like, no, it's if it's not the first, the original, it's always like whatever. I mean, except for I guess Star Wars, everybody likes Empire Strikes Back, but with Indiana Jones, everybody's like, Raiders of the Lost Ark is the best, and I don't know
Right.
about that. I don't know, but I think a lot of people think of season one of Stranger Things as good as it gets, and
Mhm.
I think what season four has shown me, at least in my opinion, is that they can mature and they can build upon the story that was great in season one. I think season two and three weren't as strong, but really season four brought the world into a bigger scope,
Mhm.
and the it's a more mature season. It has bigger horror elements. It's much more psychologically kind of scary. Their stakes are much higher in this season than in season one. So yeah, I that's my hot take, man. I think it's the best season in the series so far.
I like that.
Um, yeah, which I think maybe a lot of people might be upset about, but I really would argue against season one
Mhm.
over this for sure.
It's interesting you say that because that to me is the hip hop the hip hop structural downfall. It's that, oh, you'll never be greater than your first album.
Right.
Yeah, but I got better as an artist. I got better as a writer. I got better as an entertainer. And you're telling me that because I'm not as broke as I was, or I'm not as hungry as I was, no, I should be getting better because I love this craft. So I'm making myself better at it. So I totally can understand, and I can't say I think it is the absolute best season yet. I'm still really digesting it against the other three. And my reason for not really being able to say that definitively is I'm not quite sure where this season leaves us yet. I mean, clearly I am because it's over. But in context of what it may what's next to come.
Hmm.
Um
Yeah, I mean, it could if they crap the bed in season five, then season four might not be as good. That's for
and
sure.
and I think that's why we can say, you and I at least can say, oh, season one was great, but then we got all the way this far. Are you kidding me? You gonna tell me that these don't think these two don't at least rival one another? Um, and seasons two and three was our journey to get there.
Mhm.
For me, that means seasons two and three are probably a little better than we
I like
are
season
giving it credit.
2. I like
I
season
love
2
season
just
two.
fine. I think that everybody really doesn't like season 3 very much because it just
Fair.
got too out there. I think doing the mind flayer twice in a row was a big mistake
Hmm.
because it was fine to do the mind flayer in season 2, but then having him come back in season 3 was like, well,
It
it's
was
just the
confusing.
mind flayer. And I think that was, there's a lot of people that are upset about how the mind flayer wasn't it has sort of been retconned as not the mind flayer, but
Mhm.
I kind of like that better because I didn't know what they were going to do against the mind flayer anyways. Like it's a hive mind swarm dust cloud. What can you
Right.
do to it? And it didn't have any personality, and it was just like I feel like Vecna was a much better villain, and
You did
so I
right.
think season three really suffers from the mind flayer being the main part, Billy being the main part, and then the stupid Russian base at the mall.
Right. And there was no the Russian base was only significant to this season, not even really last season. I still to this very moment, after two seasons now, I don't understand one why Billy had to die or what Billy had to do with this entire thing at all.
Yeah,
I'm missing something.
Billy had to die so that we could actually care about Max in this season.
But we
I
already
think
cared about Max.
a lot of people didn't.
Really?
She
Okay.
scored really low with a lot of people, I think.
Okay.
And so this is actually one thing that I would like to point out too is that the Duffer Brothers, the creators of Stranger Things, I think they took a lot of the criticisms of season 2 and 3 and they applied it to season 4. And I think that that is commendable because it's a really good franchise and there was enough room and time to right the ship. And I think that when you do right the ship, make the story good again, then yeah, you should be celebrated for that. I think a lot of people were done after season 3, and this season kind of brought them back around.
That I know is true as fact. That I know for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, I could definitely run with that. Well, just initial impressions. I truly enjoyed this season as well. Um, Again, not sure where it leaves us. And yes, Nick, exactly what you said. If season 5 isn't at least on par with this, I'm not sure how I'll feel about this because there was a lot to digest. We it's the right way to phrase that. We got very close to a definitive end, and then it kind of wriggled into the dirt like a worm.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
and they kinda said, we'll see you next time. Same
yeah,
bat time, same bat channel." Yeah.
right. And you just did that to me 4 hours ago already.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot riding going to me, at least just based on that. Like you can't leave me in that level of suspense and then give me 4 hours. That pretty much still leaves me in suspense.
I think they could have probably given us everything except for episode 8, and then let episode 8 be the thing that they waited a month for. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah,
epi
just the
through
one,
epi
2.5.
yeah, just
Mhm.
like that being the last part of it, because is it episode 8, right?
I know episode 9.
9. Okay,
Yeah.
so episode 9, yeah. I think that could have been the one by itself because that felt really like a movie.
Hmm.
And
I agree.
so, and it was movie length. It was 2.5 hours long, which is incredible. I mean,
Uh,
like,
Up there with the Avengers.
yeah, episode 8 was an hour and a half, and then you have 2 hours and a half. So you got like 4 hours of pretty darn good content. And I've heard a lot of people um, complain that it was bloated and that there were too many character arcs and stuff like that. And I feel like that's kind of a, I don't know if that's a good criticism for this season, particularly because we could have said that about last season and the season before that. And I think this season does a pretty good job about keeping me interested in all of the characters.
Right. I think season 3 did the worst job of keeping you entertained with characters, and a big part of that was Billy, because so much of that
Hmm.
season was Billy, 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 and it was like, what
Right.
about Billy? And like you said, it was to get us into Max, but it's like, then tell us about Max. You could have
Right.
gave us like that. You could have gave us a flashback of that Max skate area scene where she's going through
Hmm.
those kind of things regularly in season 3, and we would have cared more about Max. But for if someone thinks this season is bloated, wow. I I only question their attention span.
I agree. And I, honestly, I was thinking about this today. This is probably the best thing that's been put out in 2022. I don't know if there's anything better. I'm trying to think about it, but I don't think there is.
A few things jump to mind, but they don't leap off the page. And since I'm still digesting the value of this season, I don't know if I could say anything is better or worse yet.
Yeah, I think when I say better, I mean that the production quality was great, the acting was great, the cinematography was great, the music was great. Like all of those things hit. And this is coming off of the
That's a good
tail
point.
of this is coming off of the tail of Kenobi on Disney Plus, which was a major disaster. People did not like that series,
Hey,
and it was terrible.
remember the last episode we did on
Yeah.
it?
We never did an episode on
Exactly.
it. Yeah. But yeah, so like I think we've been pumped with a lot of really kind of, I don't know, fillery stuff that should have been just a movie, but they spanned it for 6 episodes. This didn't feel like there was much waste on it, to be honest, at all. I
Mhm.
thought I was going to hate the Russian story arc, but I ended up really
I
liking it.
loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably the one of the funnest arcs of this season. I did not see it ending that way, especially the way it came down.
Hmm.
Um, Overall, the entire Russian scenario and involving Enzo, or I don't know what was his name. His name Dmitri.
Yuri.
What is his name?
Yuri.
Yuri. Well, no,
Mhm.
there's Yuri, and then there's
Yuri
Enzo.
and Murray and Enza. Yeah.
Right, and then but when you look up Enzo's character, he's listed as Dmitri. Is his character name?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because Enzo was the restaurant. Yeah.
Ah,
And
right, right,
he
right,
he
right, right, right,
signs
right.
it Enzo so that what's her name?
Joyce. You're
Joyce
right.
gets the message about Hopper. Yeah.
Geez, all my notes call him Enzo, but I mean, rightfully so. But
Yeah.
yeah, right. So his name is Dimitri. They just never call him Dimitri.
Right.
Got it. Um. Oh, But yeah, just even introducing him, the whole back and forth with all that, them going back to the prison, like the whole Russia. At first, I was like, "This is dumb. They're not going to be there. The kids are going to save the world, and they're going to come back and have this corny ass. Oh look! Oh my God, my poor babies! You guys saved the world. You're so
Hmm.
strong without us." But the full circle of each journey, I'm a strong believer in journeys and how important journeys are.
Yeah.
Um, the journey of each group, including the Russia group, was so important that I'm glad at no point did they ever hint that they were all going to get together to end this.
I agree, actually. I really did. There were some people that were like, "Oh, we're so sick and tired of them, being split apart." I liked that they weren't together. I like that the parents weren't with the kids. I like that the kids had this Scooby Doo thing going on. I like that 11, who's the Deus Ex Machina, was put away. She
Hmm.
was sent away, far away, so that she couldn't do too much. That was great.
Hmm.
The fact that 11 can't physically be there and has to be there kind of astral projecting is great. That's a perfect way to have her be a part of it without her without the possibility of us knowing the outcome, which is like, oh, 11's going to win because she's physically there and they're not going
Hmm.
to kill 11 off, you know?
Right. But in this
Yeah,
situation, she couldn't really that well. She could, but I agree. I like the way
yeah,
they played that down, mostly because it also shows how much stronger she had become in her training.
yes, yeah.
I have to still question, what if she had to listen to Papa?
Wouldn't if she hadn't listened to him when?
Max would be dead. Yes, I know. But
No, oh, when?
sorry. Rewind. What if she had to listen to Papa? What I mean is, what if she had have just stayed and gotten stronger? Like, would he have gone after Max so quick? I understand they were all moving forward with their plan, the humans, but
Yeah,
we're talking about ability and strength when it comes down to 1 and 11, and one had the time. He had the space. He had everything at his behest to become stronger. Um, while 11 was trying to not be special anymore.
yeah. Well, I liked sort of 11. So there's two things there. I think that I liked the fact that 11 had to realize she wasn't the monster, because in the prior season, she
Yeah.
started to think that she was the monster. And so you even see that with like, again, I've been reading a whole bunch of people's comments about this
Okay.
type of stuff, so I'm addressing that sort of thing. But
Mhm.
a lot of people were like, "What was with the bullying thing? There was too much, emphasis spent on the whole Elle getting bullied all the time." And I thought, it actually makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense
Yeah.
because she's so naive. She doesn't believe that there are evil people.
Mhm.
She thinks that she's the evil one,
Mhm.
and it takes her this whole season to realize that other people can be evil.
Take it this whole series.
I mean, this whole series for sure, yeah, but it's like, she wasn't down on the bully girl. She was like, I want you to
Right.
apologize to me. And it's because she didn't realize that somebody had the capacity to do terrible things for no reason.
Mhm.
And I think that was kind of a good lesson for her to realize that there are bad people out there, and that's how you delineate yourself from them, is by not
Mhm.
being like them.
But yeah, not being like them, not associating with them. I think there's a lot of things to dig into if we're gonna not if but from a social stance with this particular season. There are a lot of awkward moments through this entire series. There's a
Mm,
lot of growth through this series.
mhm,
This season has the best acting, period. And I don't mean that in any way, shape, fashion, or form as a slight to anyone who may not have been in this season or was more in another season than this one. What I mean by that is everyone, specifically the younger actors, they're really finding their range, finding themselves. Every single character had a monologue, had a emotional breakdown, an emotional outburst, something that allowed them to display their newfound range in their endeavors outside of Stranger Things.
mhm.
And that contributes to making something better than it once was. Um,
We got a comment here I wanted
mhm.
to share. Man of San. Man of Sand. I'm saying that right. It says one seems unstoppable, at least ever since entering the Upside Down and hooking up with the Mind Flayer / Hive Mind. Without that extra boost from them, one would be much less powerful. Yeah,
Agreed.
definitely. And I think that they'll probably play on that a little bit more in the next season. At least I would think so. The Mind Flayer might be pissed that one is manipulating it.
Yes.
Maybe it has its own, it seems to have its own sentience, but one is now bending it to its will, so that might be some sort of a revenge against Vecna at some point.
Right. So during that scene where we saw Henry find what are we calling it?
The Mind
The mind
Flayer.
flayer, right?
Or they
When we
call it, the Russians call it the Shadow.
The shadow or the
Right.
particles, right? The shadow.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so when Henry finds it, I initially think to myself, it hit me immediately like, oh, okay, it does resemble a spider, but it is its own being. It is its
Mm-hmm.
own, it has its own sentience. The first thing I thought was, oh shit, it's a prisoner.
Yeah.
Like Henry
Yeah.
found a way, or maybe Henry has an agreement with it and they work together.
I don't
But
know.
the
Yeah.
reason I thought of it that way was this: we go back to Russia, and what's left of it there in Russia jumps into the monsters to animate them. It didn't have to do that.
Right.
It didn't have to do that. It could have just got out, got back to a gate, and got back home to recombine with the rest of itself. But instead, it chose to wreak havoc, which means it
Right.
does have its own agenda. And that part of it was
Unless
unforeseen
that
by
was
viewers.
Vecna too, where it's like since he still currently controls the
The
Mind
mind flayer,
Flayer,
yeah, because he did say
that
he could still
piece,
feel them.
yes, that piece of it probably is just doing his bidding by trying to kill Hopper, I guess. I don't know,
I
I
get
don't
what
know
you're
why
saying.
one would even know about that, but he is telepathic. We
Right.
got one more comment here from Man of Sand. Thanks for the comment. We really appreciate you guys interacting with us. It says the younger cast have always stood out with their acting talent. Seeing Lucas screaming in anguish over Max was really vivid.
Yes.
Absolutely, I think that was a great culmination to those two actors
Mhm.
and their relationship over the last two seasons. It they all the kids acted their asses off in
Yeah.
this season particularly.
And
Yeah.
Man of Sin is right. They have always shown up. They've always. I feel like every single season they graduate to a new level. This particular season, I can honestly say I was not expecting uh, the next level as of yet. I think they're all great actors. I think they're all going to go very far. Um, what Freaks and Geeks? This reminds me of the cast of Freaks and Geeks and how they
Mm,
started, and I think they're going to have a very similar trajectory, if not even larger.
yeah.
But I do feel like this is the season that's going to put all of them on the map to get so many different roles that it's going to be hard to shoot a Stranger Things season 6.
Oh well, that's why it's ending at season 5.
Yeah, I think it would have to, but that's really
Yeah.
what I meant by that is I think it's getting to a point where they're going to be too big of names to continue to keep them here. Um,
Yeah, and then you get a Game of Thrones situation where you have like the last few seasons that are just awful because all the actors want more money and don't want to be there.
hey, yeah, well, we know there's another series we're covering. I think is right on that brink. So
Right, that's true. That is very true. But yeah, so let's hit some high points for the last two episodes. So
yes,
the first
indeed,
episode, eighth episode is Papa, right?
Papa.
Yeah. So what were some high points you want to talk about? And with that one, I mean, there's the big theme of obviously Elle's relationship with Papa in
With
this
Papa,
episode.
yeah.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things for me in episode 8 is something that it's never done in episode 8 or 9. Vecna or Henry or one, whatever you want to call him, Vecna Henry 1, he gives Nancy a message to give to 11. She gives the message to everyone except 11.
Yeah, she does.
Every single
That's so
person except
true.
11. It's
That's
like,
so funny. Yeah.
never gave the message. Something's missing here. Um, But I just thought that was a huge standout because as soon as it happened, I was like, how is she going to give his message to 11? This is not going to
Mhm.
work out the way he thinks. And that's more so how I looked at it. Not so much as a writing hole, but into Vecna's disconnection, like starting to understand, like, wait, he has a disconnect with certain things. And a big part of his disconnect is 11. Like, he can't keep tabs on 11 the way he was keeping tabs on everybody else.
Right. Yeah.
Like, she's literally standing next to you in the mindscape, bro. And you're like, huh, where did she come from? Like, gee.
Yeah, I mean, then she would be forced to fight him on the astral plane, which he
Right.
seems pretty reticent about. I mean, obviously, we see in the ninth episode how powerful he really is, and
And
really, it's by
I
a
don't think
twist.
that's the tip.
Yeah, I think it's by a twist of fate that they even come out alive in this, to be honest, which
Mhm.
is kind of good because that's what we wanted out of a villain, right? You don't want the
Yeah.
villain to lose like immediately. You want him to get close to really destroying the heroes.
Mhm.
And I think we're at that point now at the end of this where it's like, wow, they're down. They're very down.
They're
Uh,
down. They're down by 15 with 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. One more here from Man Osan. He says it could be some analogy between the Mind Flayer / the Dark Cloud and the Dark Side of the Force, like Vecna and Palpatine.
Ooh.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
that.
Um, there's probably some other 80s analogs you can put in there too.
Mhm.
Um, but
That's dope.
yeah,
I like that.
the Force for sure. We're getting obviously we have the Friday the 13th
Cool.
vibes
We're
from
definitely getting the force push for the entire series, so that's for sure.
Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm sorry, not Friday the 13th.
Ah,
Yeah, with the
yeah,
Freddy Krueger obviously being in the series. So
right. I brought that up in the first part, and so I expected. Remember, I said that when we covered the first part, I expected them to play more on that. They did not.
yeah, I think they did that fine enough. The reference, I think his name is it what's his name? Robert Angle?
Robert
Is the
Ingles, yeah.
Robert Angles?
Robert
Yeah, him
England, England.
Ingle. Him being in the show is great, and it's a great nod. Him being the father of this entity that can enter you in a dreamlike state is very cool. Then you also have the Metallica nod in the last episode, which is great. I know we're jumping around. Let's just hit the points that we love. We're not going to get this beat by beat, guys. Usually we try to give you like a breakdown, but this is 4 hours long, so we just want to get to the fun stuff. And so, really for me, the Hawkins group has the strongest storyline.
Mhm.
Um, and you have the California and the Russia group being sort of analog or sort of ancillary characters to that. So I really appreciate the Hawkins group because it keeps that core Stranger Things vibe,
Right.
and you have these other groups that kind of stretch it out a little bit more. Get you have the feelers of like, oh, can we do something like this where they're in
Mhm.
Russia? Can we do something like this where they're on a road trip? Yeah, you can, because you have that core in Hawkins that's still doing the Stranger
What
Things
needs to be
stuff.
done.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I viewed a lot of it. Their ability, again, them not having to all be in the same place and working towards the common goal, not even really communicating at points and still doing their parts.
Mhm.
And that's why I thought it was very important. The just because you already bring it up, the Metallica reference, Master of Puppets. I thought that was the best song for them to choose for that moment. Like I was very curious. So two
Mhm.
things. In the trailer, you see that I'm gonna say that axe solo, and I thought it was gonna be Billy. I'm almost sure that in the trailers it's Billy.
Well, they kind of look at the alike. They have the long, sort of
Uh-huh.
curly hair. Yeah. So, and it's only shown for a flash in the trailer, so you could
Right.
probably feel like, oh, Billy's in the upside down, playing the guitar or something.
Trying to save Max, and then you get the
Yeah.
whole play with Max, and that's what made me think like, nah, they played us. They put Billy in that exact same scene, had him shoot that at a distance, and then when it's time to roll it, you see it, and it's Eddie. Now Eddie did his job. Don't be wrong, but
Mhm.
um, the choice of song is a nod not just to Vecna in that situation, but to the Hawkins group understanding, hey, we're the home team. We have the
Mhm.
most knowledge of this situation. So we're the ones who are really going to be manipulating things. And that's why I like how you explained that as everyone else being ancillary. The Hawkins team, the Hawkins group is the only one that could have actually killed him in the flesh.
Yeah. They're the only ones that can really affect much change. Yeah,
Mhm. So like I
for
think that was
sure.
the perfect way to explain that because that's exactly how that was.
Yeah, and
Um,
Eddie going out in in an upside down guitar solo with red lightning and bats everywhere. That's pretty rock and roll, man. That's pretty
mhm.
metal, as he says. So
Metal.
metal. Which is a great send off for the character. I don't know if he might be brought back.
How?
in one way or another. I could see Vecna reanimating him somehow to torture
Oh,
Dustin
in that
or
way,
something like
yes.
that, or
Yeah,
he's brought back in the next season because everybody loved him. And Stranger Things did this
I
with
love him.
Sean Astin in season 2. Everybody loved Sean Astin, and then they killed him off. So they Bob,
Oh, oh,
yeah,
oh, snap! That
Joyce's
is his real name.
boyfriend. Yeah.
You said Sean Astin, and I thought what Sean Ashmore, I think his name is
Oh yeah, no.
the one that was
The
in X Men and
Lord of the
Animorph.
Rings. Yeah.
Yeah, that one too. Yeah, he was in everything. He was amazing.
Yeah. In the Goonies as well. But yeah, so they did that with Bob where it was like yeah, he was the kid in the Goonies. Um but yeah, so I like that they can do that with characters, where they can make you feel something for the character and then they kind of rip them away. It's a cop out in my opinion because they don't want to kill off the main characters.
Right.
So they give you an intense compatibility with a new character and they killed that character off because it's like, okay, we're not messing with our core characters. They make us the money, but we'll give you something and then we want to kill it. So,
Gotta
yeah.
kill it. Yeah, and that is the always. If I don't care what you watch, you could be watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's the point of ancillary characters. Is somebody's got to die, somebody's got to get kidnapped and hurt, and then the hero has to come into play.
Mhm.
Um, that's just
Yeah.
when you go for an audition, make sure you're getting a star role.
Yes, sir. Man of San asks if we've seen the anime trailer version of the Stranger Things. I have not, but I'm definitely going to check it out after this. That's for sure. That
I
sounds
just
like
want you
it's
to
pretty
take my
cool.
face as a thumbnail because what?
Right.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely.
We'll
You
check that out for sure. Yeah.
definitely will check that out. I don't even know how we've missed that. How has no one told us about that? Man of Sand, you're great. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll definitely check that out. I did, we've done Love, Death, Robots on this channel. We've done, it's not necessarily anime, but we're very big fans of animation and different type of animation styles. So
It's funny. I
yeah,
watch a lot of anime. We just don't cover it.
that's true. That's true. But yeah, so we'll definitely give that a shot. But yeah, I mean, like I think that the last episode really does like pick up the pace from episode 8. Episode 8 feels a little bit slower, so I can understand why people think that that's a slog. Um, but episode 9 is just kind of breakneck speed, sort of nonstop, except for in a couple parts where it drags a little bit to try to give you a little bit of the ambiance, which is fine. But Eddie scene is probably one of the most iconic, send offs that you can do. Dustin having to talk to the uncle afterwards was heartbreaking. Goodness gracious.
That had a couple of tears falling down my face. I had to clear my
Yeah.
throat.
Yeah,
Ruined a couple of tissue
absolutely.
paper.
Yeah.
And the way they built it up with Dustin having broke his leg, so he has that nasty limp now, and he can't really
Yes.
tell anybody why he has the limp. So everybody just notices Dustin have a limp, but nobody asks.
Right,
Um,
right.
it's oh, it tore me up a little bit inside. First off, it tore me up just for Dustin to have broken his leg trying to save his friend. And every time
Yeah.
you see Dustin limp now, you're gonna think of Eddie.
Yes, I think there were people that were like, "Well, why did Eddie even do that?" And I think there's a good case to make that they had barricaded themselves in that trailer. So if Eddie hadn't cut off the rope, they might have or hadn't gone or had gone through the hole. The bats might have come into the trailer,
For
and
sure.
then Dustin would have been, toast.
Yeah.
So I get why he does it. And him explaining it away as I didn't run away is a great explanation for the character because, like that's how he started off this season, is running away.
Running away. Yeah, I didn't run
Yeah.
away. He's a hero. And
Yeah.
I didn't like that they didn't let Dustin cuss in that moment. Dustin said shit. He's a goddamn hero.
Yeah, he should have. He should have definitely. Yeah. The Vecna fight was pretty interesting. I thought that was a creative way of finding out how you defeat this guy because I was wondering about that before. Like, how are they going to accomplish this? I
Fire.
didn't,
Yeah,
yeah.
but that makes sense to me because that's how they've defeated everything else from the Upside Down.
Mhm.
Fire and 11. Those are the only two things that work.
Right.
They
Yeah.
swim, they fly, they do everything.
They do everything. Eddie's big last stand
Yes.
was the culmination of the redemption arc. Absolutely. He had his own little hero's journey, which is great you complete the loop, you complete the circuit,
Mhm.
you can do away with the character at that point. But I think he's coming back. I think they're gonna bring him back just to have him back.
I would like to have Eddie back in some shape, form, or fashion, even if it's just like as a Uncle Ben type character. What would Eddie do? Um, but
I think they're gonna. I think Vecna is gonna use him
to get to
to
Dustin.
to get to Dustin. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
big time.
Vecna's gonna be pissed when Max wakes up and he no longer has a fourth kill. That
Right.
that in itself, and I think that's why the gates in most places except for one went dormant because 11 basically stuck her in the middle. So she's
Yeah.
not quite dead, but she's not quite alive yet.
Right. Right. So
Um,
it can't come to full completion yet. Yeah.
right, exactly. But with that, the emotional arc of episodes 8 and episode 9, like they played a little emotional play in part 1, 1 through 7, giving you these hints, tugs, and nugs of Will, Mike, 11, and all of those type of things. Joyce going to get Hop. But then when we get to these episodes, I mean, everything emotionally hit the perfect beat. And I mean, when I say everything, I mean everything all the way down to oops, his name just slipped me. The friend who drives the pizza truck.
Oh, Argyle.
Argyle. Whoa,
Hmm.
why do I forget that every time? And every time I see it on paper, I say the same thing. How do I forget that? But
Uh,
even down
John. John Campy is asking if the kill counts anyways, since she did die. I don't
well, that's
know.
the question. Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be the question. Is if 11 stuck her in the middle, and she's able to, and that I guess that would be the question. If she's stuck in a coma, would that count as a kill still?
Right. Yeah. And
And I
that's a
get the
really good.
question. That's yeah.
Yeah. It's a valid question, to be honest, because I could see where it's like maybe there's I don't know, they're gonna have to play kind of weird with the logic in the next. That's exactly why we said it really depends on the next season whether
Mhm.
this season is as good as I'm saying it is. um but yeah, I think they're gonna have to play with the logic here because uh Max's consciousness is somewhere.
Yeah.
It's somewhere, and I think a lot of season 5 is going to be finding it or looking for it. And the question is whether Max's consciousness resides in Vecna, and by killing Vecna, will her consciousness come back?
Well,
Um,
my theory on
I don't
that
know.
is Papa, was it Papa that said that he consumes that Vecna or Henry consumes, and he consumes abilities and futures and past and all of that, right? Well, if he consumes life, maybe 11 can give life and create life.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
know.
like, it's not impossible. I mean,
I
and I
know.
think even John just posted, but she did die, and then 11 brought her back.
A
Yeah,
thousand percent. Yep.
right.
Not a
We
question.
might be seeing like a Neo in the Matrix sort of thing here,
Oh no.
and she
See now,
even says no too.
she does it. No, no, you're
Yeah.
not going. You know what? I was right there with you the whole time. I was questioning how is this going to work, and that's why I
Mhm.
actually expected Max to at least be awake. With Max not being awake, it really just put a lot of squiggle lines of stink on that one because I couldn't really.
See, at
Again,
this
it makes
in
me
this
question. It makes me
right,
question.
and this is probably where I can lay my criticism if I do. I'm like I have very small criticisms of this particular season.
Mhm.
I think if I do lay criticism, it is that, um, yeah, I don't. I think the bolder decision would have been to kill Max.
I thought so.
But I
I didn't want it to
understand why
happen.
they don't want to. I understand why they don't want to as the writers, but I think the boldest decision, and it was something that was being foreshadowed the entire season. I mean, and I've heard this people say this before, where it's like you could have had the letters be the last thing that they read,
Hmm.
because she wrote them all letters, and we never
Yeah.
got to see what the letters said. So I don't know if they're going to do that for next season, maybe, or what. Yeah,
Or maybe they all read them while she's in the coma because the doctors are saying they don't
maybe.
think she'll make it.
Right. Maybe that too. Yeah, but
I mean,
I think they wanted to get as close to killing Max as possible, but they're like,
mhm.
we're gonna leave the door open just a little
Right,
bit.
and I think that's a part of what I was getting at with the emotional thing. Like, so they have all these different pocketed emotional moments that are kind of filtered through. So where you have again Will and Mike, you have Nancy and Steve, you also have Nancy and Jonathan, you also have Steve and Robin. And these aren't, I don't just mean romantic. I really mean you're trying to figure all of these connections out? How does all of this work? Why is all of these emotional stances? You get to Vecna. Vecna has an emotional compromise at this point with 11, right?
Right.
And I think that's what everything is going to have to come to, is 11 understanding that it's all emotion, and her emotion is what she's always used to tap into her power. So that love, that
Right.
care, that's
Yeah.
gonna give. That's how we're gonna find out. What was Mike's? Will said Mike's crest was the heart. He's the heart. Well,
Hmm.
if he's the heart and she's connected to him, because they're side by side, that makes her the brain, right?
What's homeboy from Captain Planet?
Oh man,
I
what
forget
is
his
Captain
name.
Planet's sidekick? I forget. I
No,
forget.
the kid that had the heart stone or the heart ring,
Oh,
right?
the kid that had the Asian kid. I don't know what his name was.
I don't know either,
I don't know
but
his
it
name.
just reminds me. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The motifs of light and dark, and I think even Manasan bringing up the Force and talking about like the good side of the Force and the bad. We obviously have 11 and 1,
Mhm.
sort of even visually representative of counterparts. You have 1, and then you have 1 1.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and they play like this sort of dual yin yang sort of thing, which is it's cool.
If
Those are very obvious sort of motifs, but they work.
Right, here's another obvious motif I'll puke if I hear any inkling of. If they even mummer brother or sister towards one another, I will vomit. I
Oh,
will
like they
absolutely.
refer to each other like that? No, I don't.
Yeah,
I don't think. I think only Papa was the
was on
one that
that.
had the
I
had the
think so as
familiar
well.
thing. Yeah.
I want that to be the case, but some things we watch so much. I see so many things play out in different ways. I'm just like, I see it and I'm just like, it's on the cusp. And if you got, all they have to do is write it in one times and it changes the entire scenario.
Yeah. I think there was a little bit level of creepiness to one when he was
I
just
want you by my side.
being the orderly. I thought that was a little bit
Oh
creepy,
yeah.
but I think that was purposeful because he was a creepy character. I do think that we need to flesh out how one has powers in the first place. Uh, I
I
don't
wish
know if
they
they're
never
going to
really
leave
got
that
it.
open. Yeah.
I think they are. I think it's gonna be left at some people are special and those abilities can be cultivated.
Mm,
Again, I think one was able, or Henry was able to get so strong because he had the space, time, and opportunity. Like he said, the realm that she sent him to uh in one day basically is how long he feels like he's been there compared to the amount of time that's passed in Hawkins. He's found,
right.
and the way he explained it, in one day I found everything, and it's like, wait, and one day or in one day? And I ran it back, and the subtitles were on, and it was like in one day, and I was like, oh, hmm, that's a different phrase than and one day.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't even really mean anything else, anyways, because the Upside Down is stuck in 1983 in the
Seemingly,
same
yeah,
day
that he
over and
got
over,
there.
right? Yeah, the day that he got there.
Oh,
Um,
maybe that's what he was saying. It's like a Groundhog's Day for him.
yeah, over and over. I mean, yeah, that's what I think. Yeah.
Now that is a duality. Um, so from there we got to the emotional hints of it. I loved the talk that Jonathan had with his brother, man. That
Oh, that
was,
was sweet. Yeah.
oh man, and because Jonathan is this so emotionally and mentally removed person, for him to like when they were in the vehicle driving and I saw Will and Mike talking, you could see that Jonathan kind of got the gist of like, yo, my brother really needs somebody, like he needs a friend. And he always
Yeah.
got that, but he was never that for him.
Right.
I appreciated that in that moment of existence being on the brink of destruction. He's like, you know what? Stop all this we doing. Let me talk to my brother real quick and let him know I love him and I'm here for him. And
Yeah, it was nice. It was much needed for Jonathan to have anything to do, and for Will as well. I do think that they're teasing Will out to be the next big character. At
yeah,
least it started with Will, and I think it's going to end with Will as well.
yeah.
Um,
I think Will has abilities that he's not aware of, and one of those ability or whatever what his ability is, one's been leeching off of it.
I think that he might just have the ability, sort of, he's still connected to the Upside Down. Is that,
Oh, just that
like,
alone.
yeah, I think maybe just that connection has never left.
Some particles of
And
mind player being in him.
right, and maybe now that the mind flayer is active again, maybe it's like, he's sensing that, I think,
Mhm.
maybe.
He
But
seems to sense it every time they step into their realm.
yeah, he always gets like the goosebumps, right?
Mhm.
But I really do think that he's going to be the focal point of the next season for
Mm,
sure. Because
definitely.
unless they're just gonna dog this kid for, for
Oh,
like 2 seasons,
yeah.
um, and
Or 3
obviously
if you
he's
count season 1.
right. Season 1, he's barely in. That's right. Season 2 is really mostly about him, but obviously he's dealing with some uh, relational issues. The way he feels about Mike. He's obviously struggling with that, and it was nice to see Jonathan have that moment with him where he's like, like, you're my brother and I love you, and it's, it's all good, man.
Right,
You're gonna be okay.
and I think it was important for Jonathan to do that because Jonathan saw the way he put himself to the side for
Hmm.
Mike,
Right.
and I think that's, again, all of that has to come all the way back around like a boomerang, but it's a battery that's gonna slap into Eleven's back
Hmm.
and turn her into, Super 11. Um,
Let's see. Manisan says a lot of people are saying will is the key to the resolution. After all, the darkness slash mind flare seems deeply embedded inside of him. He won't be in the clear until Vecna or the mind flayer is totally absolutely.
right,
Yeah,
but he also
for
said
sure.
we have to kill him. He also said that himself.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah. And I think he's probably gonna be suffering pretty bad now that um you know he's back in Hawkins too. Because I think maybe the
that's why they
separation
left.
of him being in California helped with him, not having it. But now that he's back in Hawkins, it all bets are off probably.
And I think until this season, we hadn't seen Henry, Vecna, the one, Mind Flayer, any of it operate outside of Hawkins. And then still the only place we've seen it operate outside of Hawkins is Russia, which has a gate.
Hmm.
So it still has to be near a gate. Without a gate,
Yes.
it's nothing.
I did like that. I did like that the Russians sort of also have been capturing these things and doing that, because that would make sense to me. I also did like that the Mind Flayer reanimated the dead
Yeah, I thought that was
Demogorgons
cool.
and Demodogs. Like that. That's a cool little motif. And I knew as soon as we saw them in the glass
Mhm.
jars, the
What was
giant
gonna
glass
happen?
jars, they were going to break out of there.
Mhm.
Um, but it was nice. And a lot of people have a critique for the again for the Russia storyline. I think it was pretty solid. It
I thought it was good. I wanted to find out more about it. Like, were they just experimenting on them? Did they try to grow some of their own?
right.
What were they doing? Um,
Absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of people didn't it maybe it wasn't made obvious that them killing all the Demogorgons and the Demo Dogs in Russia was actually helping
mhm.
weaken Vecna.
I mean, that was the
Um
whole point. Hop said it like
it
3 times.
it was the whole point, but I don't know if maybe they just didn't do a very good job at like drilling that into your head that like, because I remember Vecna being affected by it, but it wasn't like it stopped him from doing what he was doing.
Well,
He was just
and
sort of weakened a little bit.
right, and so here's the thing. I don't really feel like Vecna felt it.
Mhm.
He was also being pressed and pushed by 11 at that moment. So I think 11 was doing more to him, and then he could feel what was going on, but he couldn't do anything about it because he was being held at bay by her at the exact same time. Then
Yeah.
his physical body is being attacked, and it's like, all right, I got to protect myself in all ways right now. How do I focus on that? Let me focus on the physical.
Yeah. I think when you get into mind battles and psychicness, it's very difficult to sort of like rationalize each and every tiny thing. So, it being a part of a hive mind and damaging the hive mind, him being connected to that would make sense that it's, like it harms him as well.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, man, what other moments that really stood
Uh,
out to you?
I like the idea of the Warzone store.
Oh yeah,
Ooh,
the
excuse me.
surplus
Welcome to the
store.
80s.
Yeah.
Welcome to the
You
80s.
got everybody and their kids buying guns.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm, and at first I was like, "This is not." Oh, it's the '80s,
And it's
and
in
again
Indiana, dude.
and it's in Indiana, right, which
Yeah.
is again why I had to reference. They kept it very time appropriate. It's
Mhm.
like they made sure, like, "Hey, no, no, no. We could do some things back then that we can't do now. We're gonna do them in this episode or
Yeah,
this."
everybody was getting strapped, that's for sure.
Every But look, you didn't see nobody asking for no ID
Nope.
checks, nothing. You
Nope.
know what you're doing with that? You need anything? You know what? That's what you want. Go for it.
Right,
And I
right.
also, just while we're on the war zone, I enjoyed Jason having his little moment where he thought he was threatening Nancy, and Nancy just kind of like, "I have better things to kill than you right now, but okay."
Yeah, yeah, he was pretty ineffectual. He served as sort of like a foil to sort of confuscate the gang a little bit. I assume that he's 18 unless you were able to buy guns at like 17 or whatever when you
In
were
Indiana back in the '80s,
maybe.
probably like 16, 14.
You might be right. Yeah, he did buy like a 357 revolver.
Right. He walked in with his Letterman jacket. All the boys was in there with their Letterman jackets. Erica was
Yeah,
walking around picking up kerosene and stuff and grenades.
right, and knives and stuff.
Yeah. This was the good old days when look, you well, not doing it. All right.
Yeah.
So but so yeah, the Warzone scene I thought was great. The whole battle, the mental good cop, bad cop, good cop, bad cop. I was getting so burnt out on Brenner and Papa playing good cop, bad cop on 11.
Oh,
I was
yeah,
like, yo, break somebody's back, like snap one of their neck. And then it all
right.
went down the way it went down. And if I'm being totally honest, I'm glad both of them are dead.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, well, the other guy is not dead. He's not dead.
Owens isn't dead?
Owens isn't dead, he's captured by the military.
Not Owens. Brenner.
No, it is Owens, yeah.
Is it Owens?
Mhm, mhm.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he's still alive, which
I thought
I'm
they left
sure
him down there.
he'll make a return. Mano San says Hopper's sword fight to the
Yes.
finish off with the Demogorgon classic and medieval. It really was, and they even gave him like a medieval He-Man sword, which was pretty sweet. I did say to myself, "Where did that sword come from?"
It was laying out there from the battle when they fought him before.
That's fine. It was an awesome shot, and
And it
you know,
looks it
it
looks like a
looks
Game of
cool.
Thrones prop.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Looked really
Uh,
nice.
yeah, there is a little bit inconsistencies. I think you're right. It did seem to shrug off the bullets, and the flamethrower seemed to maybe weaken it enough for him to chop the head off. Because if we remember, they're in the hospital area, and one of them strapped down and cut open, and he's able to shoot it in the head,
One
and it
time.
dies. So maybe like it's a matter of having to break the integrity of their skin somehow or
Mhm.
damage their skin somehow, and then it opens up weaknesses. I'm not sure, but yes, they were bullet sponges for a lot of the time.
For the most of this series, bullets have not been effective. Honestly, I did forget that. So the things that are effective are fire,
Fire and
um,
11.
11, and swords.
Oh, swords, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I
Because he didn't just
mean,
chop off his head; he also chopped off its arm. And I'm glad that he practiced his sword skills so well. While he was
well,
like,
that's what you do when you're in a gulag, man. Look, there are things you can nitpick for sure, but I am just so relieved that we have something nice to talk about after
"Mhm,
so many months of really, really subpar stuff.
waiting for
And so, if I have to nitpick very tiny things about a great series, I'm a pretty happy person, that's for sure. Um,
I
but
do
yeah,
want."
I think the only justification I can make is that the flamethrower somehow weakened them enough for him to cut the head off, just like the one laying on the table was already cut open, so he was
Mhm.
able to shoot it with a bullet.
Had already incurred a large amount of damage.
Right, right. Yeah.
No, I could understand that. What I was going to say about that, though, is I do think it was interesting how you get to a point where you've had this brilliant scheme to destroy and kill all of them. What was the backup plan
The backup plan to what?
to the flamethrower not working? Because it's
Oh,
Murray.
well,
That could
yeah.
have went real bad.
We didn't need a backup plan at that
Thankfully,
point.
thankfully, we did not need a backup plan. But I was curious the entire time. Like, so we trust. Like, all right, Murray has shown up in season 4. Murray is a totally different character than he was before.
Yes, and I think I really actually welcome the change. I
Oh, of
I
course, yeah.
I think Murray was a little bit off the wall in prior seasons, but he's definitely warmed up in my opinion, and I think that he's a great addition to the sort of adult side of the team.
Right. I think the cabin fever wore off, and we realized that he's actually useful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Obviously he's got a black belt in karate, and he's super knowledgeable about
Everything.
conspiracy related stuff. Yeah.
Conspiracy, smugglers, you name it,
Yeah.
he got you. He knows Russian.
Yeah, he's a street smart. He's a
Mm.
streetwise guy. He knows shady situations. That's the kind of guy you want around for sure.
Um, Erica. I like Erica Sinclair as a character. Just the facts. Um, what's so crazy about the Erica character is there are times where you feel like they're gonna give her a lot. They give her just a little bit, but it's so much in that little bit that it's like without Erica, this wouldn't be possible. And
Yeah, and I think they learned their lesson from season 3. Season 3 was a little bit too much Erica. I think a little bit too much. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's a big drop off from season 3. So I could agree. I could
Mhm.
understand. Someone felt like it was too much Erica because she didn't have a big purpose. Again, back to season 3. A lot. If we could say there was a filler season, it was season 3.
Yeah, in a lot
You
of
know,
ways, it's just a retread of season 2.
right?
Yeah.
And just introduction of new or a up push of characters because Erica was already around, but we kind of got more on her and out of
Mhm.
her, and that led into what we got from Erica in season 4, which was the perfect amount of Erica.
Yes. I think
Um,
she's also starting to mature as a character too, so
mhm,
I don't think that we're gonna get the, like, the
irritating
brat
little kid.
yeah, the irritating bratty sister for very much longer, especially after what she sees with Lucas. You can
Yeah,
see in that moment when she sees Lucas after the fight, and he's like called the ambulance, like you can tell that it's
yeah.
like, oh shit,
We
you
ain't
know.
kids no more.
Right. Right. I can't bag on my brother right now. I gotta go help him.
Hey, look,
Yeah.
you can't be out here saving the world and wanting to go play with your dollies,
Right. And I really enjoyed that hero moment for Lucas too. I think that was a
Yeah,
great moment for him to fight for Max, and that dude Steve, was his name?
Jason,
Jason. I mean, like, good lord, dude,
trash.
coming in at the worst possible time.
Yeah, trash man. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's also funny about not funny, excuse me, interesting. What I enjoyed about that scene with Jason and Lucas. Jason pulls the gun on them. They go through the whole back and forth, and it's very clear. All right, Jason's gonna pull this trigger. Um, Lucas just goes for it,
Hmm.
and these aren't the times we're in today where people are, oh my God, I don't know what I would do if somebody pulled a gun on me. Now, you pull a gun on me, I'm coming at you back in those days. You're going to have to put me down. And that was exuded through Lucas in the sense of he was still reasonable, he was mature about it. He did his absolute best to avoid the confrontation to getting that far. But once there was no more, what was the line? I should have never let you in the door. I never should have knocked. Oh,
Mm.
when he said I never should have knocked and his hand started lowering, I was like, oh, it's about to get real.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm glad that his character went through that too. It's like,
Mhm.
because as a kid, you always that's
Gotta
the
go through it.
classic tale of, like, you want to be with the cool kids, right? And sometimes the cool kids aren't very good kids. And sometimes you have to make that distinction. I think he did that really well. And ultimately, it was all about Max. It was him trying to keep Max safe. And this dude was messing the entire plan up.
Right.
And at that point, it's like, all right, I gotta lay it down because this is life or death.
Yeah.
You know.
I think something about the whole play between Hellfire and the basketball team, basically the popularity play.
Mm,
I thought that was so important to this, especially when you think about how society turns out, right? Just sidebar into reality. Most of the times those kids who are athletes and they're not going professional, they're just playing high school sports and everybody's putting them on this pedestal. They don't get as well rounded sometimes. They end up missing out. They start thinking certain things and they make some really bad decisions. Seen it, we've all heard it, blah blah blah. But it's those kids that everybody thinks are doing drugs and worshiping the devil and doing all these terrible things.
yeah.
They, go and develop your apps and become engineers and social engineers and people in society who actually are super beneficial. But we don't
Yes,
talk about those things.
it's that motif that struggle builds character, right?
Yeah,
And so if you're the popular kid, you don't have the obstacles of being nerdy, you don't have the obstacles of being ostracized, and so you don't need to grow that character because everybody just loves you,
right.
and like you don't actually have to be interesting, yeah. And yeah, so the outcasts always have to sort of build a certain level of character because they're constantly on the outs with the popular kids.
Hmm.
And I think they demonstrate that pretty well, especially when you juxtapose Jason versus Eddie. Eddie
Yeah,
was a great character,
sweet.
great sweet kid that was not wanting to hurt or harm anybody, and he was seen as the outcast. He was seen as the devil worshiper,
Hmm.
whereas the
Well, that's
preppy.
because Jason said it.
Right. Well, and the preppy athlete becomes the actual demon in the
Mhm.
town, trying to kill kids. Like, dude, you're trying to shoot a child right now.
Man, you're hunting down your friends,
I know.
your peers.
The moment they got guns, I was like, okay, this is taking it a little bit too far.
I called it from the beginning, though.
Yeah.
I was like, it's gonna be
Yeah.
a manhunt. It
Right.
was
Right.
a manhunt.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually did not. I never expected it to really be a manhunt. Like, but the way that's usually how mobs turn, and and I want to say that I did expect the whole basketball team thing to get to that point. I did not expect the entire town to become a part of the mob.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's a good representation of how fear, takes over people, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
very contagious. And this type of thing actually happened back in the day. And in the 80s, the satanic panic was huge.
Hmm.
People don't, younger folks that may be graced with the gift of youth. Might not remember that back in the 1980s, there was a huge moral panic about Satanism. And there was basically Satanists lurking behind every corner. They were producing all your music, they were making all your TV shows, and they were just everywhere. And that actually spread pretty significantly in the
Some people still
80s.
believe it.
Some people still believe it. Yes, yes. And I may actually have intimate knowledge of what it's like to be raised by somebody like that. So yeah, it was not a fun time to be anything but a very conservative Christian person.
Understandable.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think those are the things that I'll say it that way. Those things didn't only mold the viewer in this particular series, it molded the writers, and that's why they wrote it that way, because they've experienced it, they've seen it, they know it, they have those reference points. Because a lot of this, let's just call it what it is, guys. We weren't there, so maybe for someone else, even this part is real, but the only part of this entire series that's not real or relatable, so to speak, would be the fighting the monsters and all that kind of stuff, and having superpowers. And for all we know, that
Mm.
still exists out there. But to my knowledge,
Yeah, yeah. You could easily replace the motif for the 1980s and put 2022, and we would be that a lot of the same elements would still be around for sure.
yeah, the
Yeah,
media, the media is still lying to
we
you
are
every day.
just we are just creatures of habit, and
Mhm.
we do not change very much, even though we can think of ways to conceptualize black holes, but we seem to repeat the same mistakes over and over again.
Don't get me started on light traveling through a dark hole, but there's famine. Um,
Right.
so yeah, overall though,
Anything
so
else, man?
I'm trying to think. I know we did not mention that episode 9 was mentioned named Piggyback.
Right.
And the reason it was named Piggyback is the way that 11 had to go to save, or not even just save Max, but to get into the battlefield versus Henry versus one. It made me realize that if Max had not chose to submit herself, there is no battleground. Max sacrificed herself as a battleground. I think
Right.
that's
Yeah,
really what
she has to
messed her
be.
up so bad.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, and Vecna basically broke her body.
That's true.
Even if she does come out of the coma, she's gonna be paralyzed, man. It broke her spine and her legs and her arms.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's why and that's why I was like, why is she blind? Oh, because he broke her back and that severed. Wow.
and also her
She was,
consciousness has left her body as well. So
yeah, she was dead.
yeah.
She was dead.
So Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the only problem I did have a little bit. I want to say that while I'm thinking about it, I had a little bit of an issue with the whole 11. No, you're not going. Like, lady, do you know how to bring somebody back? Because you could really hurt your friend from,
That would have been a
theoretically.
nicer, yeah, that would have been a nicer payoff had it been something that was alluded to in the past. I'm not sure if it has been yet.
Like, has she at least
Um,
revived a bird or something?
See, that would have been cool if they had done that a couple seasons ago, where like because there was a scene where she has to try to kill a cat
Hmm.
back in like season 1 or 2 or something like that, and she doesn't want to do it. Um, but it would have been cool to add a scene like that where she had to restart a heart or something, and then maybe you could be like, "Oh wow, she's using that knowledge."
She's superhero.
No, but it's just because the love, man. It's the love.
Amen.
And that's fine. It's a kids theme. Let's keep it, let's keep it very primary colors and not try to get too technical about, the ideas of love versus, hate.
Keep it
Like,
to blue and green. Keep that teal over there.
yeah. I think it's fine as is. I think that a lot of people were ragging on that concept of like, oh, is it going to be love triumphing over hate again? And it's like, yeah, because that's
Yeah,
every story that we've ever written, and it hurts the your psyche when it doesn't work that way.
yeah. It's
you know.
and my thing for those people who feel that way. Now, don't get me wrong. I love to see a bad guy win. I do. I don't know why, but it's entertaining. However, would you really want to see this bad guy win?
And they never win forever.
True. Yeah,
They
this
never
bad guy
win
wins
forever.
right now, then somebody else has to become the new 11, which means we have to wait. What? They're in high school, so at least another 15 years.
Right. Yeah. Um.
So
All
yeah,
right.
let's
Let's get to
see.
our ratings, man. I
Let's
think
get to ratings, but I do want to mention a few more things. Something I
Oh
thought
yeah.
was great.
Yeah.
Joyce and Hop matching for all of episodes
Oh,
8 and
yeah,
episode
yeah.
9.
Oh, with the Russian puffies. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
the puffies, the yellow shirts, everything.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I do think we've gotten
That's gonna be a
uh,
Halloween costume this year, you know
oh,
that
for
for
sure.
sure. The
Yeah,
Russian puffy. Yeah.
without question. Yeah, but aside from what the fights, there were so many different fights. What Eddie fights the bats, and Elle was fighting Henry. Lucas fought Jason. Um, I appreciate Lucas coming back to life after that half pass out, but could we have just not gotten to the half pass out?
Right. Mano Sam, thanks again for chatting with us. We really appreciate it. We don't get a lot of viewers, but we really appreciate when people do check us out. So thank you for your comments. It says there's a link between conceptualization of black holes and Stranger Things. Yeah, absolutely. Physicist Harold Puthoff, I think Hal Puthoff, who published papers on gravity theories, also led the project Stargate, which is a government program to study physics. You're absolutely right, Manasam. And that is an interesting thing that you brought up because we do podcasts on the side. And I have a podcast called Exofathom where we go through the entire Stargate document. I have a couple of Itzhak Bentoff's works. I think Stalking the Wild Pendulum was where they got a lot of the ideas for the holographic universe from.
Mhm.
And yeah, we've got podcasts talking about that over at Exofathom if you want to check that out. But yeah, I love the Stargate documents. I think they're fantastic, and me and my wife go over them in. I think we do it in 9 episodes, each like an hour
Yeah, it
long.
was fine. Yeah,
Yeah, and we talk about each one. So very cool documents for all you like out there listening. You can get it at the CIA.gov library. Yeah.
which is great. It's great night boredom time read stuff. It's like, what y'all did what? This is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I want to say we may have alluded something to the Project Stargate and Stranger Things back in season 1. I think you might have brought that up, or
Yeah,
around the time we found out about the gates, and especially seeing how the gates were set up. They were set up very much so like Stargates.
nice.
For those of us who watched things like Stargate.
Oh yeah, I grew up in Montreal in the night, so you know all
Oh
about it.
wow! Oh yeah!
Yeah,
Oh yeah! That was probably like
yeah.
a school topic back then, huh?
Right. Yeah, it's like while it was
Jealous,
actually happening.
so jealous.
But also, I think the Montauk Project, right? The Montauk Project is another one of those very clandestine government projects that Stranger Things is based on. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I feel like we need to just do another episode of, in case we haven't already referenced some of these things, like what are the real life documents and connections to Stranger Things? That would
That
be
would be
pretty
cool. We should definitely do a collab on that. That would be a lot
awesome.
of fun, I think. Yeah.
Mhm. So yeah. Oh, sorry. One thing, another thing I have to mention: pineapple goes great on pizza. Elle said so
The debate. I don't know why this debate has popped up so hard again. Like people are very impassioned by this one.
because people
Um,
don't like fruit when it's warm, and it's like, get over yourself. If you've never had a baked apple, you're missing out on life.
well, yeah, apple pie is delicious, and
You know
that,
what I'm
yeah.
saying?
But yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I probably would have to have it again to even have a say. I don't think I've had uh, pineapple on pizza in like, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years. It's been
I
so long.
I know where you live. I'll send you a pizza. Don't worry.
Right. Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
Uh,
Anything else that you wanted to bring up?
no, I mean that was pretty much the major stuff. I didn't like the male ball player jumping on Erica, so I'm glad that she got to
Yeah. Yeah. She
full,
got him in the nuts. That
yeah,
was
full
good.
stomp him in the nuts because that
Right.
was just ridiculous.
He
And
deserved
not
that.
I want to say it this way: it's not necessarily because like, oh, she's a girl and he's a boy. Nah, it's like, bro, if you gonna run up
You're
on
like
her, at least
8
give her a
years
fair
older than
fight.
her
Yeah,
too. She's like
like
11 or
give
12.
her a fair and square if you gonna get if you feel you so big and bad, like.
Yeah.
And that's only because, in my opinion, because yeah, Erica got a cheap shot in to get away. I think she would have gave him some work. She's kind of
Yeah,
feisty.
if
She
she
might
didn't
pop,
have to be
pop a
somewhere,
pocket
she
knife
might
like
have
that.
she might have hit him a couple more times if she didn't have to be somewhere.
Right? She
Sure.
probably had a
Why
little
not?
Swiss Army knife tucked in her bun or something. Who
Sneaky
knows?
shank. Yeah.
Right. Um. But overall, I want to say we have covered a lot of the major points. There are so many other things that we could talk about in the upside down and all of that. But again, as we said, if we go beat by beat, we'll be giving you guys a whole new 2 or 4 hours of this.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
Um, I
not
w-
we're not EFAP, unfortunately.
I
There's
do
a
appreciate.
there's a channel that does that, and they're very good at it, but I don't have the stamina for that type of thing.
I
Uh,
understand. I will say, ooh, I blanked. I don't know what I will say.
all
Oh,
right. That's cool.
so when we're talking about the progression of the story, you have Henry getting away. I am just saying, I would like them to have had a little bit of a discussion, not just this ominous stare off. You know, I'm not exactly sure what we're supposed to get other than the ash raining from the sky, because again, technically Max isn't dead and we don't have any understanding on that.
Well, yeah, I think they're just leaving that all as cliffhanger for next season, right?
Well, when the hell are we getting in that season?
2024. It's got to
Right,
wait
you
2
get what I mean?
years. Yeah.
I looked it up. I'm no, I'm well aware.
That's the problem with the binge model, right? And it's like, once you're done with it, you're like, all right, when's the next one? And they're like, what do you mean? It took us 2 years to make that.
To make this, yeah, you're right. And they gave us so much content that there's definitely enough content to go back and
Yeah,
forth with for about a year.
for sure. Yeah,
Um,
I could be patient. Honestly, like I'm used to watching Peaky Blinders, and that took like 5 years to come out
True.
in between seasons, and it's like it just takes way too long. But that's all right.
I do want to say I think it's very important to note that we find out that Henry's entire point was to lure 11 so that he can take her abilities. Because as we learned, he consumes your past, your present, your future, abilities included.
Mhm.
Um, that in itself was a full circle moment for his purpose. One of them are going to have to consume the other one
Yeah,
and take the other one's abilities.
yeah.
I don't think 11 has understood that yet. And the moment she does, she's going to be disgusted. But she's going to have to turn into that monster that she's afraid of becoming. Um,
Mhm.
but be more of a
Unless she can put him into another world inside the Upside Down.
I would not do
You
that
know
because
how
we see how
how
that
does
turned out
she
the first time.
just open up another dimensional rift in the Upside Down?
Yeah, I thought about that, but I think that would be a terrible idea because we see how that turned out.
He might
But
become more powerful. Who knows?
right, I am curious if she were to consume his powers, does she become like a Cthulhu type of a power? Because
No.
essentially, she already can do that, except for she's not like the mind flayer where she can make you do things by just. hypnotizing you.
Yeah, the mind flayer is its own entity, so I
True,
don't know that she would
true.
probably have that. But I don't know. I mean, maybe. It's also, like, I think that they need to sort of no, they don't need to. That's a weird way of saying that. That's they don't need to do anything. I think that it would be nice to sort of explore how she's able to do the piggyback thing, because I didn't even know that she could go into people's minds until this
Oh yeah,
season.
yeah. When she did it to her mom,
That's right. Okay.
yeah.
Yes, you're right. She
That's
did
when we
do
find
that
out. I
in the
believe that
pre.
she could do it when she did it to her mom.
Okay. Then never mind. It's just me being inattentive.
And the only reason, no, I can't say that's the only reason I remember that, but they also referenced that in this season. There was a flashback to her doing that while she was
I
trying
know
to
they
redeem
did
her
that. Yeah,
abilities.
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. Okay.
Um, but
That
but
makes more sense.
I somewhat get what you're saying. Like it wasn't exactly um this clean cut laid out thing. It was almost like, for lack of better thought right now, it was almost like some of those moments in other shows and movies where we're like, you made that happen because you really didn't know how else to do that.
Yeah, but I guess it makes sense though too, right? Because that space that she's in is this fifth dimensional space, the
Yeah,
astral plane that she's in. It would make sense because they do explain how she even makes contact with the upside down in the first place is by
through that,
seeing a demogorgon, right?
yeah, through the
Uh,
darkness.
right. And so her making that contact, I guess, is a precursor to tell you that she can sort of interact in that space in more than just an observing way, because she can actually touch it and interact with it.
Well, we know
Um,
she can open the we know she can open
oh,
doors, and we
yes,
know right, and we know she can close doors.
yes,
But can she destroy a door?
yeah. Can she hold the door?
I know she can
That's
hold a
the
door. I don't think that's a question.
it's a
Yeah,
Game of Thrones
right, right. No, I
reference.
got you. But yeah, so I believe that's more actually where we're headed now that it just hit me in that light. Yeah, she's just gonna have to get stronger. That's all
Mm,
that's coming. She's just getting stronger. I
yeah.
just realized I don't even think there's anything more to add to that other than she's gonna get stronger.
She is definitely. Amanda said he wished that we'd peruse the story plot involving her mom and also her aunt. Yeah, they did.
Mhm.
Yeah, there is a lot of more mystery about that too,
I think
because it would seem that her mom was also somewhat
special.
special.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they kind of explain that. But yeah, there's probably a little bit more stuff that they could talk about, which maybe they'll talk about in the next season too. So.
Well, I don't think they're going to. I think them even alluding to the little bit they alluded to with her mother when they did was more than they should have. Um, because of the introduction of Henry. If you're not going to give us the full background on how Henry got his abilities, then giving us
Right.
any background on how Eleven got her abilities just seems. I think the word is contrived. Is that the right word?
Yeah, it also, yeah, I guess yes, because we know 11 or 1 as the first person with abilities. No, because it would be 11's mom would be the first person with ability. No, it's 1,
No,
right?
it would be
Because
one
right,
from back
he's
then.
from the 50s or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, which
Yeah, I want to say technically he should be probably like 2 or 3 years older than her mom.
yeah, he's in his 30s when he's in the
Mhm,
ward, right? With
mhm.
11.
With
Yeah,
11,
he's got to be. Um because it was like 1947 or something when they
when he
moved
was
into
a
the
kid,
house. Yeah.
and
And it's 1986 now. That's 40 years
it
later.
was like 79 something. I think I wrote
Right.
that one down when she sent him
To the upside down.
to the upside down.
83 was
83
when.
when she sent him to the upside down.
Mhm.
Okay. You Googled it? You can't Google it before I get my
No, I
notes
didn't
right.
Google it. I just thought about because the upside down is stuck in 1983. I
Oh,
think
right. It's
that's the
stuck in
date.
83.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It's stuck in 83.
Yeah.
Which also made me question. So when 11, so again, 11 goes into the dark realm, the fifth dimension, so that Papa puts her in that place. Let's say it correctly. Papa put her in that place because he found out that she could open doorways into other dimensions and realms. And I'm
Well,
thinking,
ancillarily, the official government job was to spy on the Russians.
you're right. It was
Yeah.
remote
It was
spying,
remote viewing.
remote
Yeah.
viewing. That's the word.
Mhm. Yeah, but then he found out how much else she can do, and that
Mhm.
became like the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a movie about that where they're trying to find people. I'm gonna stop thinking about that because that's gonna take me down a rabbit hole right now.
All right.
There, I don't know if that's a TV show or a movie, but there is something that references something similar to that. Um, and I don't think it's Men Who Stare at Goats for the record.
Mm.
Because I've said that to somebody, so I'm like, Men Who Stare at Goats. I'm like, no, I remember Men Who Stare at Goats. So, but yeah, yeah, that's where we at. The gates are open, then the gates close. Max is in a coma. 11 pulled a Neo, and no,
Mm.
and we're not really sure how that plays out. So there are a lot of, I say about 5 question marks at the end of the statement that comprises the final statement for season 4. I'm not turned off from the season. I am highly still interested in what's going on. I will say though, we are treading into, if you don't do this right, it's going to fall very hard on its face territory.
Mm.
And I don't like to feel that way as a consumer, because I think that's putting a lot of pressure on a creator. Um, no one should feel like, oh, I did my best and nobody likes it. Now, sometimes that's going to happen anyway. But I think the ending of this season, the last episode specifically, it gives the consumer a lot to question and a lot to, if you're not, especially if you're not a critical thinker, if you're not going to sit and carry these thoughts for a while, you can just be done. It's too much. It's too complex. It's too hard. What are you doing next? And you want me to wait a year?
Well,
No,
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially 2 years, right? Because it probably isn't going to come out until summer of 24. So, that is probably my biggest issue with this season, is because I know the time gap in between.
Yeah, see, but the thing is though is that people were not stoked about this season after the last season, and now people are like, I can't wait.
You think it has like a season 1 feel?
I think it has a season 1 feel where everybody's going to want to tune in for the last season, and
Mm,
it may crash and burn. It may. I hope it doesn't. I think that if they land this right, like they could have a really solid, nice, story here. 5 seasons is tight. It's, like there are some bad elements in a few of the seasons, a couple of
yeah.
the seasons, but if you start off strong, which we all agree that they did, and you
Oh, yeah.
finish strong, then that's not bad. That's
Right.
not bad.
Now, let's be clear. If this were a battle or a bout, they still won the fight, but they did not finish as strong as they started.
Well, they lost the war so far.
Uh, let's see. One, two, yeah, about halfway through, 50-50. But
Yeah,
yeah, 50-50 in war is a loss. So you're right.
Vecna is not damaged enough.
I
I
don't think
mean,
so.
he's going to rebound.
The way he got up and got out of there, he's definitely not
Right,
down for the count.
right. All right. Well, let's get our reviews in, our ratings, so we can wrap this up nicely.
Right. And and wait, and everybody is reunited.
Yes, which is
Ellen
good.
Hopper back together. Joyce is back with her kids. Um, uh, all the kids are back together, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody's back together in Hawkins.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can get to our ratings, because that is, I think that's very important to note, especially for anyone who is stuck around with us, however, didn't really get into the episodes themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Let's do this. Ratings time. I'm going to give it an 8.5. I think this is a great season of television. I think that they've done something that is, I would say season 1 is an 8, maybe leaning towards an 8.5, but season 4 for me is an 8.5. I really appreciate that they made the bad guy somebody you can interact with. Having it be the Mind Flayer for 2 seasons just was so impersonal that I didn't understand what the Mind Flayer wanted. We didn't really get it. Creating this Vecna character really crystallized it. And yes, maybe it's a normie take, for the people who are a fan of, the Eldritch gods and Cthulhu and stuff, and, like ambiguity of why they're there. But I don't know if it makes for good television to have a villain that has no purpose. See Game of Thrones and the Night King. like there is a yeah, you can definitely make mistakes. And so I think that what they did with season 1 was great, and what they did with season 4 was sort of build upon that greatness. The characters are much more mature. The actors are great. They were great in season 1 too, but like they're just coming into themselves as actors anyways. And they're young, but they're starting to get older, and they're like they're coming into their own. So it's nice to see that. The music is awesome.
Mhm.
Kate Bush's "Running Up That Hill" was great. Although I'm pretty convinced it's a remix, because the original does not sound like that.
I don't think I ever covered it, to cut not to cut you off, but to add really quick. I don't think I've ever commented on air the breakdown of the Kate Bush song.
Uh,
So it is an old song from the 80s. It
mhm.
hit the Billboard, did its little numbers, then it disappeared. But I think in like 2012, it was remixed for the Olympics.
There you go.
And
Okay.
that's the version that we're hearing.
Right. Right. Yes, the remix version's better. The original isn't as fast paced as the one that we hear in Stranger Things, so I like that. Obviously, I had Journey "Separate Ways," which is a great song. You have Metallica, a Master of
Master of Puppets.
Puppets, like iconic song. I think one of the biggest albums that year too, so that makes sense. Um, yeah, so all of these things were done very well. The horror is much more mature. It's much more scary, psychologically more thrilling. So I'm really happy with the season. 8.5 for me.
That's
It's
awesome.
it's it's very good TV. It's probably the most enjoyable thing I've seen this year so far.
I cannot argue that it is not in my top three. I'm gonna for sure place it in my top three this season. Um, I cannot say it is one, two, or three because again, I still have to go through my thoughts on that one. But I fully agree. Top three, without question. I will watch this entire season again. I'll probably watch this series again before season 5 comes out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um, but everything you said, just take that, copy paste that right over top of my voice, and then we can deep fake it.
There you go.
Um, but then after that, let's add that I cried.
Mm-hmm.
Like first, it was like, oh man, that's oh wow, it won't stop. Like it's not stopping, and that doesn't happen. But when you get involved and you get attached to characters, and the acting, the writing, the everything is just right on point. Everything is lined up perfectly. You get to a point where you have to admit that you are in love with a series or you are in love with a show or a concept. And Stranger Things is doing that for me. Um with that being said, I don't know if I know I've teared up in other seasons. But I don't think I've actually like need to get up and get some tissue in any of the other seasons. So,
Yeah, that's a good point. There's more heart in this
oh
season
yeah.
too.
And the mention of heart is consistent with my from about episode 6, no, excuse me, episode 8, actually, I'm tripping, where Will tells Mike, hey, you have the heart crest, like you are the heart of this group, you're the heart, Mike, you're the heart. And it's like, yo, but again, to the emotional play we were talking about earlier, the heart, everything of that, all of that plays into my rating right now. Everything else has already been said. We already know those things. We know this is great. We know the actors are great, music, cinematography, all of that. Like, if you didn't know that, why are you watching Stranger Things? But the heart in this season, I have to give this an eye.
Nice.
I want to give it a 10, but that last, those questions at the end, which of course had to be there to get us interested in season 5. That's the only reason it's sat a 9. But this season gets a 9 for me.
Yeah, let's. You know what? I'm gonna piggyback on that. See what I did there.
Pun intended.
And I'm gonna go 9 too. I think that it deserves it. You're right about the emotional aspect. That was something that I didn't emphasize. I don't think enough. But the heart was definitely there. Was
Mhm.
definitely there, and I did. And I think it's just because the actors do such a good job with each other
Yeah.
that I was very convinced of the dynamics and the caring. So yeah, I would say, yeah, you're right. I think it is a 9. And for that reason, that there was a lot of heart and there was a lot of emotionality towards the end too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to also add it wasn't even from all the places I expected it to be from. I thought Joyce and Hop would have been way more emotional. They were more funny.
No, it was Joyce and L, man.
Yeah, Joyce and
I
L.
mean,
Now
I
that
mean, not Joyce and L, Hopper and L. Hopper and
well,
L was like that was
Hopper
the
and L.
biggest thing.
That's easy. Joyce
Yeah.
and L actually, or maybe that this was just me for Joyce and L. It was them not having as much emotion as everybody else, having that understanding of
Mm,
we knew we'd be back here if nobody else understood. That meant a lot for me
mhm,
because it was that faith, that hope they had alive, and it was for that common goal and that common purpose of knowing Hop was still out there and he was coming home.
mhm.
Um, that's what their moment. I thought that's what you were gonna say a minute ago, but
Right.
that was
Yeah,
their
that
moment
makes
for
sense.
me that
Right.
had me like, what's understood don't need to be explained. Well, I tell you. And then what did she say? I'm glad you took your conference. I'm like, man, y'all get out of here. Y'all getting me off.
Yeah, it was
Um,
a sweet moment.
yeah. And so for the last 32 minutes of episode 9, um, heartfelt. And then the last 30 seconds of episode 9 are kind of, I guess, or that's gonna be the thumbnail shot and the advertising shot for the beginning of season 5.
Right.
And I do want to state before we close out, I liked that last moment with Elle standing out front, and then you had the 3 groups sectioned off, showing again we're gonna need 3 groups, and Elle's gonna have to be in the battle,
Mhm.
and showing that Jonathan is with Nancy now, so Jonathan's gonna be back with that group, replacing Eddie.
Right. Right.
So I really enjoyed just kind of that. I don't know what that would be called, but kind of that picture being set forth to kind of foreshadow, yeah, to foreshadow what's to come.
For
But with
sure.
that being said, anything else, sir, from you?
No, that's it, man. I think we did it.
We made it, y'all.
We made
So
it.
this has been our screen time continuum review of the Stranger Things season 4 part 2. We appreciate you guys for hanging out, and for anyone who stuck around this long, stick around just a little bit longer and find out about some shows that I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy if you enjoyed this.
Special shout out to Manasan for commenting along the way. We really appreciate it. Again, we're a teeny tiny micro channel, and we just appreciate anytime you guys interact with us. So thank you, and also to John and to Ayla, I think, who's also in the chat at some point. Thank you all for commenting. We would love to read every one of them, but sometimes we get caught up, and we'll do our best to read as many as possible. So thank you guys. We really appreciate it.
Definitely. And I want to say, talking about comments, I see at the very bottom, Manasan also gives this a 9. We appreciate you
Hey,
being on
oh,
board with
good.
that.
Oh shoot, I missed that one. Nice. All right, cool. You
Yes,
get
indeed.
9 as well. We're doing triple nines here.
Triple nines,
and we're getting into that magical realm there.
I love it. But definitely, guys. So go ahead, for all of those who are still sticking around, get your pen and paper out. If you're not having pen and paper, at least get your devices out and be ready. You're going to be on Facebook, you're going to be on YouTube, and you might even need to hop over to Twitch if you're interested, which I know you will be because you're still here. So head on over to the Exofathom. The Exofathom comes on Fridays at 8 p.m. That's over on Facebook and YouTube. Saturdays, you're going to head on over to Facebook and YouTube once again. This Merry Moment is there for you 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturday mornings. Sunday, right back here, Screen Time Continuum, 8:30 p.m. Sundays and Wednesdays. Mondays, you can have the day off. We'll give you a little bit of time with your family. Tuesdays, come right back on over to Facebook, go on over to YouTube, check out If Numbers Could Talk. We'll be right there for you at 8 p.m. on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, today, right here, Screen Time Continuum. And Thursdays, you can head on over to Twitch and to YouTube and check out Strawberries and Coffees, where Dejan will be right there for you with an incredible video game vault. He just broke out some other stuff last week that he didn't even go live with. And I'm just like, you have to play that one on air, bud. Like, you just have to. But yeah, thank you guys for checking us out. Please check out some of our other content. And if you don't want to go and add all those other channels, maybe your subscription list is too long, make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and that little ding ding bell for the Screen Time Continuum. You'll still hear about all of our other channels, some of the stuff we have going on over there, but you will 1000% get the updates for the Screen Time Continuum and all of our future episodes. We appreciate you guys for hanging out once again. My name is Nick. I'm sorry,
And
my
I
name
am
is not
Keelan.
Nick. You know what? We're running with that. My name's Nick.
I'm Keelan.
And we appreciate you guys. Have a great one, guys.
Good night.
Oh, man.